See this island? This is Quimada Grande Island. From above, it looks like a forgotten little piece of paradise in the middle of the Atlantic. A refuge surrounded by the deep blue ocean, untouched by civilization. Behind the natural beauty, however, lurks one of the most dangerous places on the planet. Few have the courage to go near it, and rightly so. Stories about this island have circulated for generations. They say that whoever sets foot there never comes back. Legends tell of fishermen and adventurers who got too close and disappeared without a trace. The reason? Snakes. Lots of snakes. The island is infested by one of the most lethal snakes in the world. There's no sea monster, no pirate curse. The real terror here crawls among the trees. Today, Bello Mundo takes you to the most dangerous and deadly island in Brazil and perhaps the world. Snake Island. Hold on, because this trip promises chills. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Just 36 kilometers off the southern coast of Sao Paulo, there is an island that defies all expectations. Covered by the Atlantic forest, but without a single strip of sand. There's no beach to spread out your towel or take a dip in the calm sea. But I'll tell you, the lack of sand is the least of the problems. This island is like nature's proving ground, full of obstacles and inhabitants who make no bones about sharing space with visitors. With an area of 430,000 square meters, Quimada Grande Island is a constant up and down, with two elevations that define the look. On one side, a discreet lighthouse. On the other, an imposing elevation that reaches 206 meters. Anyone who thinks that the hard part ends with the view is mistaken. Landing on the island is a challenge in itself. There are no friendly harbors or coves. Arrivals take place on slippery stone platforms covered in silt. An invitation to fall if you're not paying attention. The vegetation is made up of tall, dense trees that form a closed forest with caves hidden among the rocks. It looks like something out of an adventure movie. But believe me, the island's greatest spectacle is not its landscape. What really dominates this isolated piece of land are the official inhabitants. And when we say inhabitants, we mean snakes. Lots of snakes. There are no rangers or ecologists on duty here. And, to tell the truth, there's no need. Who would have the courage to invade a place like this? It's no wonder that in 2010, Quimada Grande Island was voted by the Listverse website as the worst place to visit in the world. Yes, it was above Chernobyl and the mud volcanoes of Azerbaijan. And that's where we're heading today. Prepare yourself, because this destination is not for the faint-hearted. Number 2. The origin of the island. Quimada Grande Island entered the maps in 1532, when Martim Afonso de Souza, the same Portuguese soldier who founded São Vicente, the first town in Brazil, passed by during one of his expeditions. And what did he do when he saw the island? He stopped, hunted some birds, and before leaving, set fire to everything. Yes, you read that right. They set fire to the whole island. But why? The official version never existed, but it is said that fear, or perhaps superstition, spoke louder. Perhaps Martim Afonso and his troops came across some of the famous snakes that reign there today. Whether it was fear, bad luck, or survival instinct, nobody knows. What we can say is that the practice caught on. Burning the island became almost a tradition. At the end of the 19th century, the Brazilian Navy decided to install a lighthouse there. And guess what? The lighthouse keepers who had to live on the island experienced the same terror. Snakes were everywhere, and the lighthouse keepers responded with more fire. The fires were so intense that, it is said, the flames could be seen from the mainland. and that's how the island got the name it still bears today, Quimada Grande. But living surrounded by snakes wasn't just a story to tell. Even though there were no records of fatal attacks, the presence of snakes was constant and relentless. They were unforgiving. They devoured chickens, dogs, cats, and any other animal that the lighthouse keepers took with them to try to soften their isolated lives. You can imagine the suffering, can't you? The situation lasted until 1925, when the lighthouse was automated and the Navy finally removed the lighthouse keepers from the island. Since then, the snakes have taken over the territory for good. With no one to stand in their way, they reign supreme to this day. Number 3. Fatalities. Although there are no official records of deaths, the stories that surround Quimada Grande Island seem straight out of a horror movie, with a good dose of urban legend. One of the most famous stories tells of 3 fishermen who, after a failed fishing trip, spotted banana trees on the island. Hunger is hunger, and the 3 decided to go ashore to pick some fruit. They didn't know they were about to enter forbidden territory. They say that 2 of them were found days later in pools of blood, while the 3rd disappeared without a trace. No boat, no body, as if the island itself had swallowed him up. But it doesn't stop there. Another chilling tale involves the lighthouse's last operator. He lived on the island with his wife and 3 children. One night, snakes invaded the house through the windows, forcing the family to flee in desperation. Running to the boat, they were surprised by more snakes hanging from branches along the way. The family never managed to reach the sea. If that wasn't disturbing enough, one of the most intriguing stories comes from the 1920s. A janitor was sent to the island with his wife and 5-year-old daughter. When the supply team arrived to restock the lighthouse, they found the door open and the place empty. The family was discovered dead on a hillside path. To this day, anyone who ventures onto the island swears they hear children's laughter mingling with the sound of the wind. True or a figment of the imagination? Only those who have been there know what really happened. And as if the horror menu wasn't already complete, there are those who say that the island is the guardian of a pirate treasure. According to legend, pirates hid a very valuable chest on the island, leaving the snakes as guardians to ward off any adventurers. This theory went so far that it became the subject of the Discovery Channel program, Ilha das Cobras, where experts landed there in an attempt to find the famous treasure of Trinidad. As fascinating as these stories are, the truth behind so many snakes on the island has much less to do with curses and much more to do with evolution. Number 4. Snakes everywhere. The question that won't go away: how did this island become a snake paradise or nightmare? Believe it or not, the residents of Quimada Grande Island were trapped there. It sounds like something out of a movie, but it's pure science. It all started around 20,000 years ago, during the last ice age. The world was very different. The sea level was down because much of the water was frozen at the poles. Back then, the island didn't even exist. It was just a continuation of the continent. But then came the great natural warming. The polar ice caps melted, the sea level rose, and the island separated from the continent like a forgotten piece of the puzzle. But there was a problem. Some jararacas were there at the time of the flood. When the water rose, they were stranded, with no way back. Thus began one of the most fascinating evolutionary stories on the planet. Isolated from the world, the island's snakes followed a completely different path from their mainland cousins. Every little detail in their behavior and characteristics was shaped by the need to survive in a unique environment. And now that you know how they got stuck, it's time to get to know these crawling celebrities. Number 5. Famous species. Islands have always been home to incredible stories, from the Galapagos, which inspired Darwin, to Quimada Grande Island, which is second to none when it comes to extreme adaptation. This piece of land is the exclusive home of the Jararaca ilhoa, or Bothrops insularis, a snake as unique as it is lethal, which only exists there. According to biologists from the Butantan Institute, who have been studying the island since 1911, Quimada Grande has one of the greatest natural snake shows in the world. The main protagonist, the Jararaca ilhoa. And what makes it so special? Simple. It has reinvented itself in order to survive. Separated from the continent around 10,000 years ago, the lily jararac had to adapt. Unlike its mainland cousins, which feed on rodents, this snake's diet is more exotic. It hunts migratory birds. And we're not talking about just any birds, but species that only pass through the island from time to time. Now, here's a curious detail. For some reason, the jararacas don't attack the coruira, a resident bird that lives on the island all year round. It's as if there was a non-aggression pact. Strange, isn't it? Scientists are still racking their brains to understand this phenomenon. But when the target is a migratory bird, the story changes. In order to catch its prey, the lily jararac climbed, literally, another level in the food chain. It has learned to climb trees. It is the only snake in Brazil that lives high up, balancing on branches to surprise its victims. What's more, the Jararaca ilhoa is a master of disguise. It swings its tail as if it were a worm or caterpillar. The birds, without suspecting it, approach to take a peek, and then it's gone. Unlike continental snakes, which bite and release their prey to wait for the poison to take effect, the Jararaca ilhoa holds on tight. For the bird, escape is almost impossible. And the poison? There's no forgiveness. The Jararaca ilhoa's toxin is among the most potent in the world. The effects? Stabbing pains, vomiting blood, internal bleeding, and necrosis. The lethality rate reaches an incredible 93%. A bite like that leaves no room for regret. It's game over. The lily jararac is living proof that, in nature, those who adapt survive. Number 6. Appearance of snakes. As well as being lethal, the lily jararac also knows how to impress with its looks. With a yellowish coloration that glistens in the sunlight, combined with that classic triangular head, this snake is not only beautiful, it is a true master of disguise. Its perfect camouflage allows it to blend in with the island's dense vegetation, making it practically invisible during the day. And yes, it hunts in daylight quietly, while the birds fly over unaware of the danger lurking among the branches. Now, here's a curious detail. Quimada Grande Island is also home to another snake, the dormouse, Dipsas mecani. But, let's face it, it doesn't even come close to the Jararaca ilhoa's stardom. After all, we're talking about a snake that has put Quimada Grande Island on the map as the place with the highest density of a single species of snake in the world, a true spectacle of nature, but one that, let's face it, nobody wants to see up close. Number 7. Restricted access. Quimada Grande is a paradise for biologists and snake lovers, but if you're thinking of visiting, forget it. Access to the island is extremely restricted. Without authorization, Quimada Grande remains just a story you hear from afar, and not just because of the snakes. Although they are a real threat, the decree that limited access to the island was actually an attempt to protect the unique ecosystem of the place. On November 5th, 1985, the Brazilian government declared Quimada Grande and Quimada Pequena to be areas of relevant ecological interest. The decision helped preserve not only the Jararaca Ilhoa, but also a variety of other animals that depend on the island's fragile balance, such as birds, lizards, spiders, and insects. But calm down. That doesn't mean the island is off the radar. Although the decree doesn't completely ban visits, anyone wishing to disembark there must pass through the sieve of the Special Secretariat for the Environment. Tampering with the island's environment without authorization is no joke. It's an environmental crime and can result in severe penalties. But even with this protection, the island is still at risk. Human interference, legal or otherwise, remains a constant threat. Number 8. Risks of extinction. Today, the population of the giant Jararaca on Queimada Grande Island is around 2,000 snakes, according to data from the Brazilian government in 2019. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, known by the acronym IUCN, estimates that the number could be as high as 2,500. It may seem like a lot of snakes for a piece of land measuring just 23 hectares, but it's worth remembering. This is the only place in the world where this species exists. What's worse, it could end at any moment. Even with this apparently stable population, the lily jararac is at risk of extinction. The IUCN Red List points to two major threats: deforestation and poaching. And why would anyone risk their life on an island full of poisonous snakes? The answer is simple and absurd. Money. On the black market, a Jararaca Ilhoa can be worth up to $30,000. The rarity of this snake has made it a real treasure for animal traffickers. But while some hunt for profit, the impact is devastating for the survival of the species. And it's not just hunting that weighs against them. Since 1920, the Butantan Institute has removed around 830 snakes from the island for scientific research. Of course, these studies have helped science a lot, but there's no denying that taking hundreds of snakes from a limited population may have affected the balance of the species. At the end of the day, one uncomfortable question remains. Who is the real predator here? The snakes for humans or us for them? Number 9. The importance of these snakes. The good news is that there is a gigantic effort to ensure that king cobras don't disappear from the face of the earth. Every snake found on the island is microchipped, a painstaking effort to monitor the population and keep this unique species alive. The research there is as fascinating as the snakes. Divided between ecology, molecular biology, and reproduction, these investigations go far beyond understanding snake behavior. The Butantan Institute, for example, doesn't just study venom. They look for solutions that can save lives. And we're not just talking about anti-snake serum. Snake venom is a veritable treasure chest for medicine. It can be used to create powerful painkillers, anticoagulants, and even anti-inflammatory drugs. Want an example? Captopril, a drug used to treat high blood pressure, was developed from the venom of Bothrops jararaca, a continental cousin of the lily of the valley. Can you imagine what else we might discover? What's more, scientists are already thinking about the future. They're studying ways of reproducing Bothrops jararaca in captivity. That's right, a sort of genetic reserve that would act as a plan B in case something happened to the island's population. It sounds like science fiction, but it's pure conservation in practice. And if you think all this effort isn't worth it, think again. Losing any species is a loss for the planet. The lily jararac, with all its lethality, is a powerful reminder of how even what scares us can actually save us. So, the next time you hear about snakes, remember this: nature is full of surprises, and not all of them are bad. So, What else has left your hair standing on end about Snake Island? Did you know there was such a place where nature decided to add an extra touch of adrenaline? If you enjoyed this trip to one of Brazil's most dangerous and fascinating destinations, don't forget to like and follow the channel and turn on notifications. There are plenty of chilling stories and unbelievable places in our Bello Mundo coming up, and you don't want to miss them. Thanks for joining us on this adventure, and we'll see you in the next video. See you there.